welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amy. I'm a mum of 2 boys and really happen to love books. So if you'd like to see some more from me on my cosy little corner of the internet, then please consider subscribing. It would be lovely to have you here. It's now 2025. I hope you guys had a very healthy and gentle entry into the new year. I definitely did. And I'm very excited to see what this year brings. It has been a bit more of a slow start in terms of my reading. We're currently on the 5th of January and I'm only about 60-70 pages into one book, but I'm going to try and take it a bit slower, and I'm going to try and DNF books a lot more if I'm not enjoying them. I felt like that was a big struggle of 2024, was that I was trying to push through books that I wasn't necessarily enjoying. So yeah, that's going to be one of my big improvements of 2025. But anyway, I'm digressing. But in today's video, I'm going to do my November and December wrap up. I did not read very much in either month, so I'm not going to be doing any story graph statistics or anything like that for these 2 months, just because I only read 3 books in each month. So I read 6 books overall over November and December, which isn't my best, definitely not my worst, but yeah, I definitely took it a lot slower because it was my son's first birthday. We had Christmas to prepare for, and then we spent Christmas with my family who live about 6 hours away. So my focus wasn't really on reading, it was about spending time with my family. So that is why I have not read much this month, but I have lots of videos planned for you guys and I really hope you enjoy them. So shall we jump into my November and December wrap up? So the first book I read in November is a gothic classic, and I was a bit disappointed. Frankenstein by Shelley. The writing in this was absolutely gorgeous. I loved the writing in it, but the plot, I was a bit like, hang on a minute, this is getting a bit out of hand. So we follow Victor, who is Dr. Frankenstein. A lot of people know him as Dr. Frankenstein, and we follow his life through this book. So he finds his calling in human anatomy and he creates Frankenstein's monster, and it's his greatest life's work. But then once this monster comes alive, he is absolutely terrified and runs away and leaves this monster for years and years on end. And this monster decides to take revenge on Victor and his entire family. And this entire book is just basically this big battle between Frankenstein and the monster that he's made, and them battling against each other. And there's a lot of commentary on free will and how that has a big impact on the actions of Frankenstein's monster. Like, he did not ask to be made, but because he has been made, all he wants is to feel love. And that was a very prominent theme, being deprived of love because you don't look like a normal person. Yeah, there were very much elements of this that I enjoyed, but there were some elements where I was like, Victor, what the heck are you doing, man? Like, it was just such a strange experience. So yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed because I thought I would absolutely love this. I'm still definitely going to keep this cloth-bound edition because I think it's absolutely stunning, but I rated this 3.75 stars, so it was pretty mid for me. Now the second book I read in November, this was not mid. This was one of my best books of the year. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. This was amazing. This kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time, and this is a hefty book. Like, how many pages is this? This is 518 pages. So this is a pretty chunky book, and I read this in a couple of days. I was hooked, you guys. I mean hooked. I could not put this down. Any free moment I had, I was reading this. So we follow our main character, Louise, and she is a witch, but she has been in hiding for a lot of her life. Her mum, as we find out later on in the book, tried to sacrifice her when she was 16, so she ran away hoping to never see her mother again, and ever since then she has been hiding hoping that her mother doesn't find her. She's been a thief, a pickpocket, she uses different disguises, she resides above the theatre in this town where this series is set, and she lives a very quiet life. That is until she has an altercation with Reid, who is the head of the chasseurs, who are witch hunters. So he is the head witch hunter. They have an altercation, and this leads to them having to get married. So a witch and a witch hunter have to be bonded by marriage. So very much enemies to lovers. Slow burn romance, because as it usually goes in these stories, they end up falling for each other. But this is very slow burn. It's more like enemies to acquaintances, and then acquaintances to friends, and then friends to lovers. So it's a very, very long process of Louise and Reid building this rapport and building this relationship over time, but Louise still has to keep her secret of her being a witch. There's a lot of religious commentary in this book as well, and how a lot of wrongs can happen in the church and they are just kind of swept under the carpet, especially in terms of like witch burnings and things like that. But yeah, this was an absolutely amazing 5-star read. Loved every single minute of it. 5 stars. And the last book I read in November was Blood and Honey, which is book 2 in the Serpent and Dove series. Now this was a bit more of a disappointment. I did end up rating this 4 stars just because there were some wow moments in this that did kind of redeem it a little bit. But this is a direct continuation of the Serpent and Dove storyline. So we are still following Louise and Reid and their friends that they have made in book 1. And this is more about Louise and Reid trying to find themselves to then come back together as a couple. There is a lot of things though that I feel like were just cut and pasted from book 1. It felt very rinse and repeat, which was so disappointing. But again, there were parts of this that I did really, really enjoy, but I don't want to say too much just because obviously it's a direct continuation of the storyline and I don't want to ruin anything for you guys. I cannot talk today. I've tried like 3 times to film about this one, but oh well, it's that New Year slump, guys. I'm back at work tomorrow, so my brain's just going a million miles an hour. We are now into December, and in December I read my longest book of the year, Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahurin, which is the 3rd and final book in the Serpent and Dove trilogy. This is 612 pages long. This is slightly longer than Dracula, I think. According to my story graph, this is the longest book I read this year. Again, I rated it 4 stars. Very disappointing compared to book 1, but there were very prominent themes through this that did redeem it and knock it up to a 4 star rather than, I was going to give it a 3 to start with, and the ending of this was absolutely gorgeous and it was a perfect ending to the trilogy. That was a big redeemer for this book. Again, following the main Serpent and Dove storyline, and this isn't really a spoiler I would say, but there is a big battle at the end of this book, so Louise and Reid are trying to find allies for this battle. A big prominent theme in this book is grief and how to cope with grief. You know, when you are in the absolute trenches of your grief and you feel like you can't carry on, you have your friends and your family there, or even your found family there to help you through it. It was such a beautiful exploration of the feelings of grief, and all the different stages of grief I would say are very prominent in this book. There's a lot of denial and a lot of despair and feeling like you can't go on, but then there is that hope at the end that, hang on, maybe I can get through this. The ending of this was absolutely beautiful, but I'm not going to say why because that is mentioned in book 2. So this was an okay end to the series. The last chapter and the epilogue, absolutely gorgeous, but the rest of the book was a bit mid for me. So all of the books I read in December were actually 4 stars. So my average rating was 4 stars for December. And the next book I read was Upon a Frosted Star by M.A. Kuzniar. I mean, one, just look at this cover. How wintry is that? This book was an emotional roller coaster. One, it was absolutely gorgeous to read. The writing style and the whimsical just settings were just gorgeous. Let me read you the first line actually, because as soon as I read this, I was in the mood for this book. It was a late November night when the wind was blowing like Father Frost and the Thames was near frozen solid that Forrester wondered if he had been cursed. November had whirled into London like a storm, frosting the spires and domes and leaving Forrester with a childlike longing for snow. This was heightened by the scent of roasted chestnuts drifting along the embankment. He set off in search of the cart and parted with a few coins for a bag. The paper warmed his hands as he made his way to the bench overlooking the river. That got me in the mood for Christmas so much. But as you heard me say in the excerpt that I just read, our main character's name is Forrester. This is set in 1920s London, and Forrester is a struggling artist who has moved to London after a very big argument with his family, and he has not spoken to his family since. And he lives with his best friend Marvin in a little flat in London, and they have a best friend called Rose, and they are like the Three Musketeers. They are joined at the hip, they absolutely adore each other, and one day they end up going to a party. So whenever the snow falls, there are these very, very fantastical invites that come in many different shapes and forms every single time the snow falls. And at this humongous mansion, whenever the snow falls, there is a humongous lavish party, and there is a different theme every single year, and all the invitations have little clues and excerpts on what the theme of the party is. And Forrester goes to one of these parties for the first time, and he sees Odette. Now he doesn't know that her name is Odette to start with. We find out her name through the course of the book, but he is absolutely besotted with her. And after he's gone to a few more of these parties, he starts painting her. She becomes his muse, and they end up actually meeting and talking, and they end up falling in love. And we find out that Odette has been cursed, so Forrester makes it his mission to find out who cursed her, why she's been cursed, and how to break it. The ending of this book, you guys, I wanted to throw this book out the window. That's the only reason why I rated it 4 stars. If the ending was better, I would have given this 5 stars, hands down. But the ending made me want to cry out of sheer frustration. I am not going to say why. You will need to read it for yourself if you want to find out. But why can't they just have nice endings for nice couples? I don't get it. This made me so frustrated, but it was still an absolutely gorgeous book nonetheless. Okay, I don't have that much time left on my camera, but I've only got one more book to go through. So this was the last book I read in 2024, and it was Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. I really want to read more from her. I really enjoyed her writing style. I'm not sure if it would be the same in like A Study in Drowning, which is the next book I really want to read. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. I gave this 4 stars. So I think a lot of people were annoyed by this book because they thought it would be a retelling of Macbeth from Lady Macbeth's point of view. But I would say it is more of a reimagining of the Macbeth story. So we follow Rossilla, I think that's her name. And we follow her journey after she is betrothed to Lord Macbeth and her struggles in basically just becoming a pawn in a political game, and she ends up finding out she has a lot more power than she realises. She starts off as this very meek, shy girl. I think she's only 17 in this. She starts off very meek and shy, and she is terrified. She's been taken away from her homeland and thrust into this new life with a new husband that she doesn't know, who is expecting her to produce heirs pretty much straight away. But she ends up having a lot more strength than she realises and a lot more power than she realises. The reason why I gave it 4 stars is, one, it's probably my own fault. I am not very familiar with the Macbeth story. I touched on it very briefly in high school, but I don't remember a lot of it. So a lot of the references I didn't really get. And then another thing, there were a couple of scenes in this which were absolutely brutal. Like brutal. I was like clenching my fists while reading this because it made me so upset and so angry. But I also realised that this is what life would have been like for ladies in 12th century Scotland when I think this is set. Yeah, this was a tough read, but I did thoroughly enjoy it, and I love the special edition that I got from Waterstones. I think it's super cool. But yeah, Lady Macbeth, I gave 4 stars. So that was my November and December reading wrap up for 2024. I will be filming my January wrap up very soon, but I've only read part of 1 book, so I really need to get my skates on. But yeah, I hope you guys have really enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more from my channel, and I will see you very soon in the next one. Bye!